This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We'll do one more. You cut, yeah? Okay, we're going to talk now about Rabbi Avraham Broide. The Eshel Avram was nifter in the year 1717. Remember we said that after the Great Fire in Frankfurt in 1711, so Rabbi Naftali Katz had to leave. In the interim, the Maharashach was the Rav, and then the Rabbi Avraham Broide. Says the Chidah, B'Yisrael Gadol Shemai. In Israel, his name was great. V'hirbitz Torah B'Yisrael Ma'oid. He was a great Marbitz Torah. V'shamanu mitoikev gedulas, v'gadlusai v'Torah v'chasidus, v'goidosh geidasai ad yom terasai. Says the Chidah, I heard about his gadlus in learning, in saintliness, in hasmada until the day of his patira. Ushmai hoylech b'chol ha'olam. The words of the Rabbi Avraham Broide, the reputation of Rabbi Avraham Broide spread throughout the world. Now, he was the Talmud of Rabbi Yitzchak Charif, and he introduced a new system of learning in Klal Yisrael, the system of pilpul, dialectic debates, very sharp analysis. Not necessarily to learn aliba de hilchasa, but a very intellectual gymnastics, as they call it. And this attracted many, many Talmidim. In fact, the story goes, Rabbi Hillel Kalamaya reports from the Magidei Emes that the Marsha, who was one of the masters of Pshat, came to Rabbi Avraham Broide in a dream to reprimand him for instituting this system of learning, which was not the classic traditional way to learn. It was more an intellectual system. And Rabbi Avraham Broide responded that he only did it to preserve the Torah, which was drying up, and in order to inflame the hearts of the Talmidim. Now Rabbi Avraham Broide, his house was open wide. People came to eat. He raised Yisoimim in his house. His love for his Talmidim knew no ends. Talmidim who couldn't afford food for Shabbos, he would buy them the food for Shabbos. So some of his notable Talmidim, Rabbi Yosef Steinhardt, the Karban Nesanel, the Me'il Tzedakah. Okay, Rabbi Isai, anybody here ever hear of the Me'il Tzedakah? Rav Yoina Lansdorfer. We're going to talk about him in a moment. He published the Eshel Avram on Baba Basra, on Chulin, on Psachim, B'Metzia, on Gittin. He published the Toldos Avram on Kedushin and Ksubis, the Shmaitza Charata on Ksubis. Rabbi Isai, he was Mekayim Adam Kiyamos Ba'ayal. Zois Chukas HaTorah Adam Kiyamos Ba'ayal. 7.5 minutes before his patira, he was involved in learning a complex sugya in the Gemara of Hamadir. Now I'm going to tell you a very interesting controversy. A lot of people are sleeping because this is not for the faint of heart. So, if you're up, that means you can handle this. He had a big disagreement with the Chacham Tzvi, a very big controversy. And the story goes like this. By the way, he was the Zayda of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Rabbi Avraham Broide was the Zayda of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. And here's the story. The story goes like this. One time, and this is recorded by Rabbi Yaakov Emden in the Megillah Sefer, Rabbi Yaakov Emden says that sometimes his father, the Chacham Tzvi, would have machloikesin with Gedolim, l'shem shamayim, of course, and they had a machloikis, Chacham Tzvi had machloikis with Rabbi Avraham Broide, who was the Rosh in Prague at the time. What was the machloikis based on? The Rabbi Avraham Broide did a shidduch in Prague, actually in Hamburg, and Rabbi Avraham Broide came there for the shidduch. And at the time, the Chacham Tzvi was an avel for his father. So the Chacham Tzvi couldn't really participate in the simcha, but he came with some of his Talmidim to Altona, to Hamburg, to give shalom to Rabbi Avraham Broide. And Rabbi Avraham Broide says, "No, why didn't you come greet me before? Why didn't you come be Makabel Panai? What took you so long?" This is what Rabbi Avraham Broide tells the Chacham Tzvi. And the Chacham Tzvi was not happy that Rabbi Avraham Broide was asking for kavod, that he should have come to greet, he's munning the Chacham Tzvi should have come to greet him. And the Chacham Tzvi said, what a chutzpah Don't you know the Gemara in Chagiga and Daf Hey Amud Beis that Rebbe and Reb Chia, whenever Rebbe and Reb Chia would come to a city, so what would happen? Rebbe would seek out, Rebbe would ask, are there any Tzurbim Rabbanan in the city? Because it's the proper cover that when somebody visits a city, they need to visit the Rabbanim in the city. So Rebbe, who's Milanu Gadol Mi Rebbe, Rebbe would ask, are there any young Talmid Chacham in the city that I should go greet them? And they told him, yeah, there's a certain young Rav, and Rebbe went out to greet him. Says the Chacham, say, I have a question for you. Are you greater than Rebbe? You're not greater than Rebbe. Says the Chacham, say, am I less in my dar than that little rabbi was in his dar? So really, you should have come to greet me when you came to my city. And you have the chutzpah to tell me, why didn't I come to greet you? That's a chutzpah. So they were very upset at each other. In fact, they started having a conversation and learning. And says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, my tata was really driving circles, and he got Rabbi Avraham Broide tired out. So Rabbi Avram's Broide's son was there. His name was Moshe. And he said, Moshe, answer the Chacham Tzvi. Chacham Tzvi didn't like that. What? You're not going to answer me yourself? Your son should answer me? So Chacham Tzvi had a daughter. So Chacham Tzvi says, daughter, answer Rabbi Avraham Broide. So they left each other in great anger. They got upset at each other. Until the following happened. Rabbi Avraham Broide sent a messenger to the Chacham Tzvi that Rabbi Avraham Broide asked for Mechila, and that he was makabel to fast as a tikkun for insulting the Chacham Tzvi. But ultimately they made up when the Chacham Tzvi met a great guy, Rabbi Yoina Landsdorfer, the Shal Chuvas Me'el Tzedakah, one of the Talmidim of Hakim of Rabbi Avraham Broide. And they got involved in a discussion. Chacham Tzvi said, who's your Rebbe? And he said, my Rebbe is Rabbi Avraham Broide. Chacham Tzvi said, someone who could produce a student like Rabbi Yoina Landsdorfer, I can't have any hakvadas on. And that's what allowed Chacham Tzvi to make up with Rabbi Avraham Broide. Now, I'll tell you something. Rabbi Avraham Broide, again, introduced Pilpul to Klal Yisrael. So I remember when I went for a faher on Yerodea from Rabbi Noach Isaac Olbaum. So he said he wanted to say over a kasha of Rabbi Avraham Broide. This question is quoted by the Pri Megadim in the Tevas Goyma in Parshas Mishpatim. A gavaldig olam de shekasha. You ready for the kasha? The kasha goes like this. 3 times the Torah says, Lo yisavashel gedi b'chalev imay. Don't cook a kid with its mother. 1 to teach that what? You're not how to cook. 1 to teach you're not how to get hana. And 1 to teach you now how to cook. 1 to teach you now how to eat. And 1 to teach you now how to get hana. Frekt Rabbi Avraham Broide, maybe really you're allowed to get hana. But the reason why the Torah says 3 times Lo Yisavashel, 1 to teach you now how to cook, 1 to teach you now how to eat, and 1 to teach that the Isser of eating is only derech bishul and not derech bishul. So you'll say, but how could it be that you're allowed to get hana? You say, of course it's only derech bishul because the Torah says Lo Yisavashel. No, maybe I'll tell you it's not derech bishul. So why does the Torah say Lo Yisavashel? Because if it would have said Lo Yisoichal, we have a rule whenever the Torah says don't eat, it automatically includes hana. So the Torah didn't say Lo Yisoichal because really hana you're allowed to have. So maybe really you're allowed to get hana from basar v'chalav. But so why didn't the Torah say? So what are the 3 Lo Yisavashels? 1, don't cook. 1, don't eat. And 1, it's only usher to eat derech bishul. But really you're allowed to get hana. That's the famous kasha that they ask in the Olam HaYeshivos from Hagoin, Rabbi Avraham Broide, Zechusay, Yagein, Aleinu, V'Kol Yisrael.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.